Good evening and welcome and Happy New Year to everyone. Welcome to the January 5th, 2016, the very first Village Council meeting of the new year. This is a meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council, so if you were looking for the Downers Grove Park District, you were in the wrong building. Just kidding. Welcome to everyone for being here tonight. This is the Downers Grove Village Council meeting, and Happy New Year to everyone. It is my honor to call this meeting to order. There are copies of our agenda on either side of the room on the shelf. If you haven't already done so and you'd like to pick up a copy and follow along with our proceedings tonight, I would encourage you to do so. There will be multiple opportunities for public comment, both with respect to items that are on tonight's agenda, as well as a segment that is reserved for comments of a general nature. That is item 4, public comments. This is an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions or make comments with respect to items of a general nature, with respect to items that are not appearing on tonight's agenda. Now, it is our proud custom to begin our meetings by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. So at this juncture, I'd like to ask everyone to please rise and join us in reciting the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask our fine village clerk, April Holden, to please call the roll.
Commissioner Waldeck.
Here.
Commissioner White.
Here.
Commissioner Vitimo. Here. Commissioner Jose.
Here.
Commissioner Olson.
Here.
Commissioner Barnett.
Here.
Mayor Tully.
Here, thank you. That brings us to item 3, which pertains to minutes of prior council meeting minutes. We have one set of minutes to review and approve tonight. Are there any changes or corrections to our December 15, 2015 council meeting minutes?
Mayor Tully, I move to approve the minutes as presented.
I second the motion to approve the minutes.
I assume that there are no changes, questions, or comments, so I'll ask for all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed, those minutes are approved. That brings us right to item 4, I talked about earlier, the public comment section. This is an opportunity for members of the audience to ask questions or make any comments of a general nature with respect to things that are not on tonight's agenda. So if there are any members of the audience that would like to participate at this juncture, please come to the podium, introduce yourself, and we'd welcome hearing from you. Good evening and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Mayor Tully. My name is Sherwood Kramer. I'm speaking on behalf of an owner on the 4700 block of Oakwood on the north side in the historical area. I did speak at the last meeting, and I'm circulating now to each of you a copy of some things I'd like to discuss briefly. Not going to take that long, and some sketches and pictures as well. We've been having, as neighbors, ongoing correspondence between the village and the developer regarding 2 new homes that were built on the west side of Oakwood, and some issues related to stormwater drainage there. And I would like to say that I think it's been constructive, this discussion between the village and the developer. Maybe it's not moving quite as quickly as we'd like, but especially Karen Dalton Lang and other village staff have done some good work there. And I know one of the village commissioners was actually on site on Oakwood Avenue last week, I believe. So that's greatly appreciated, because then I think you have an understanding of what we're trying to present to you here. And I draw your attention to the next page, sketch number 1. And this shows the property as it originally looked for many, many years, 100 years, with the prior older house on it. You can see that it's a 110 by 141 lot, quite large, in the historical area, and there was a small 2-story home on it, and the permeable surface was, I estimated, about 93%. I might be a little bit off, but I think it's pretty close, which means there was drainage on 93% of that lot, including the gravel driveway. There was no asphalt driveway. The next sketch shows the current configuration with the 2 new houses, beautiful houses, wonderful houses, and driveways and house and some brick paver patios, which are somewhat permeable. And I estimated, I could be wrong, that there's now 60% permeable surface, give or take a little bit. So have lost a lot of permeability there, and I think that's certainly created the problem we're talking about here. You can see the rain garden that is causing most of the concern to the neighbor directly to the west, which is the top part of the sketch, and also to the right part of the sketch, which is to the north, and that's where my friend's property is located. And drawing your attention back to the outline here, the permeable area is really inadequate to handle the amount of water being discharged. From the sump pumps and the downspouts and the deep pour basements. I mean, sometimes all we think about is, you know, the coverage of the land, but when you consider that you've got a basement that's 11 or 12 feet deep, for which water from all around the house drains into a sump pump and then has to be pumped out, I mean, that's a huge amount of cubic volume of water that also has to be transported out and stored on the land. And on this particular parcel, it just doesn't work. And I think that's obvious. The rain garden overwhelmed through the fall and early winter. We had some rains, and it just overflowed into the neighboring property to the west, Mr. Schwartz, who talked to you last week, and also my friend to the north. And think about when the spring rains come. You know, it's going to be even much worse if we don't do something now. Now, there's a proposed drainage-based installation that's going to connect to the storm sewer. And if you look at sketch number 2, the third page in, you can see where that drainage basin is supposed to be placed. It's in the middle of the 2 new lots and then drain out to connect up with the storm sewer. And that's, I guess, a good temporary solution, but it's not going to solve the problem because staff, including Julie Lomax, who's done a good job from the village, and the neighbors met at the site after 1.5 inches of rain in December, shortly before this last village meeting. And the rain garden was overflowed at that point. And this catch basin that's going to be put in there is intended only to collect overflow after 1.25 inches of rain. So to me, I mean, I'm not fully educated on this, but that rain garden is still going to be almost completely filled with water before this interim catch basin solution comes into play. Now, there's a rain garden between the 2 homes now, an additional rain garden. And where does that water flow? So it collects there in a swale between the 2 houses, and that's supposed to solve some drainage issues right there, but that water overflows, or even if it permeates through the ground, there's not that much distance between the houses. It goes into the sump pumps of those houses and gets pumped out again. So this is just not the right solution for this location. Now, what about the impacts to the neighbors? Well, there's flooding in the basements. Mr. Schwartz talked about that last time. Standing water in my neighbor's yard, and let's take a look at the 4th page in. You know, here's the rear yard looking north from looking west from my friend's house at the rear of her yard, a beautiful spruce tree that's been sitting in rainwater, frozen rainwater, I guess, now, for 2 months. Can the roots handle that? There's 2 other old growth trees there. There's a beautiful hard maple, and that's the last picture. Take a look at that hard maple. You know, we got a lot of those soft maples with the whirlybirds, but this is a beautiful hard maple. And then on the last page, you can see the frozen rain garden at the back of that new construction house. And that rain garden sits about, I'd say, 2 to 3 feet higher than the property to the west, which is on the right side. And when that thing fills up with more than an inch and a half of rain, actually probably more than an inch, it just floods over to the west and then this way to the north. And there's a 150-year-old oak tree in the rear of my friend's yard. I mean, this thing is huge. Probably Oakwood Avenue was named for that tree. And that thing has been, the roots have been sitting in this water for 2 months. I'd be ashamed to lose it. My friend also has a new 1/4-inch crack in her basement floor. I could bring you a picture of that, but, you know, doesn't show up real well, but it's new. And it seems to me it's caused because this water has nowhere to go. So it's rising the water table in this whole area, pushing extreme pressure on the floor of this basement next door, inevitably, causing a crack. So there's no natural outlet for the water to the north. It flows from that rain garden into my neighbor's yard and then collects in a pond at that huge, huge lot with a big historic house just to the north of my neighbors. And I won't name the people who own it, but there's a big low spot there. The water can't escape from there. There's no escape. It's the low spot on that street. And as that fills up, it fills up my neighbor's yard and then all back to the new owners. And by the way, there's no animosity at all between the existing neighbors and the new neighbors. We are very happy to have them. So, none of that. This problem's going to persist. It's clay-based soil. There's very little percolation. And I read the 2014 stormwater guidelines, the new ones that came out. And this is where I think rain gardens were introduced and among other things. But it talks about a nuisance being standing water that's there for 72 hours. What about 60 days? I mean, shouldn't this be a violation? I mean, it's clear to me that, and I know they're working on something, but it's not the answer. It's not the real solution. The sump pumps of these new homes have to drain directly into the storm sewer. That's the only answer. Or we're going to be back here February, March, April, after the rains, because that rain garden is not going to solve this problem, not on that lot. I mean, if you look at that second sketch, you can use common sense and see that there's not enough permeable surface left for what needs to be carried. I thank you for your attention, and I hope that there's something this council can do now so we don't have to go into such an extended period of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. Needless to say, since the 3 weeks that this was brought up to our attention, we're well aware of this issue and are getting frequent reports from staff in terms of the progress. And we do understand that staff continues to work with the builder and his engineer to review and approve improvements and try to facilitate compliance with the stormwater ordinance. I understand a number of different solutions have been proposed. Not all have been accepted readily. Those things are still in conversation. Final occupancy permits won't be issued until the ordinances are met with. But I appreciate your comments, and we're well aware of the issue. And all I can say is that there are people in the field who are working on this. And again, we have stormwater engineers who are far more qualified than I am to figure out what the solutions are. And all we can do is give them the directive that we already have, which is to do their best to make sure that things are accomplished in a way that is in full compliance with our ordinance. Thank you. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Tully and members of council. Brian Blattner at 4732 Oakwood, one of the new properties. Thank you, Sherwood, for the details that have been offered up here. And not to belabor the point, we were out here at the last council meeting, and number one, I wanted to thank everybody for the involvement to this point and the dialogue that has happened with the staff. And things are progressing, so thank you for that. One of the things, this certainly wasn't the welcome that my wife and I and family had signed up for Downers Grove. And it's been a little frustrating that we had offered, multiple solutions or multiple options from a licensed engineer through the build process, none of which were accepted. And now what we have existing is what was prepared and built for according to code and what was required from the village to do so. It also, it required us a large amount of capital to invest in this rain garden, along with the fact that it renders a very large portion of our backyard completely unusable. And again, not to belabor the point, but we've got 2 young children, and the standing water is a huge concern. Not only when it's unfrozen, but now when it's starting to freeze, if any children or pets or animals were to get back there and to fall through, I mean, this isn't an inch of water, it's pretty deep. So I just want to make sure that we go on record with those concerns. And again, what was constructed, what is constructed today was what was asked of us to construct per the code. So, I just want to make sure that we're all moving forward with a solution that can be acceptable in the long run. And we want to be, active members of the community. We had a number of choices of towns to look at, and we settled on Downers Grove for multiple reasons. And we're really excited to be here, and hopefully we can get past this point. And Mayor, you mentioned the final occupancy. I would ask that members of the council and the team, as we progress with the dialogue, that we consider a temporary occupancy while we work towards this. We have, again, constructed what was asked of us. It doesn't seem like there's going to be any movement in terms of being able to move the ground or put a solution in during the winter time. So if we're looking at, spring or summer in terms of being able to implement what we decide to do, that puts us at a very difficult situation for my family. And I hope that we can all, again, work together, exchange the dialogue that's needed, and again, appreciate all the neighbors and their input here. Our intention is to be, contributing members of the village. And again, thank you everybody for your consideration and involvement to this point.
Sure, thank you. And I've been around the block long enough in this position to know that I'll hear one side of a story, and then I'll hear another side of a story, and typically I've come to learn there isn't just 2 sides of a story, sometimes there's 3 or 4 and 5 sides of a story. And having gone through the very process that you're going through only about 2-3 years ago, I know firsthand that sometimes there are multiple sides to every story. And I'll simply say that we have information we've heard from different people, and I think sometimes what happens is people hear more than what was said, and sometimes people say more than what they intend. And I think there's a little bit of that going on here, because my understanding is that things weren't exactly constructed the way they were supposed to be, and that may be some of the issues. And I don't know what your information is. I'm not going to pretend to know who told you what. I just know, I'll go back to what I say, that I've been around the block long enough to know that there's usually 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 sides to a story. And I'll just let you know that we're hearing multiple sides of a story. What I think we really want to focus on is to try to get to a situation that meets full compliance with our ordinance. We typically will not give out temporary or final occupancy permits until things have been complied with. That's not picking on you. It was the same for me when I built my home. And everybody else that goes through the process in our community. Obviously, we want it to be a result that is one that is acceptable to you. I think everybody involved would prefer that we didn't even have these conversations here on Tuesday night. I'm sure you would. I'm sure you and Mr. Kramer would prefer not to be here talking about this issue. So all I can say is that please understand that we've heard multiple facets of this situation, and we're going to continue to ask staff to do the best they can to try to come to a result that is both compliant with the code and also something that gets you in your house.
Just one response. Thank you, Mayor, for that. Just one response, and I welcome the dialogue. And if I could be, I'd like to be involved. I know at this point there's been different levels of conversation amongst staff, maybe engineering, builder. I want to make sure that I can have your sponsorship for me to be involved and included on these correspondences, because if there's misinformation, that's an issue, right? So I want to make sure that there's full transparency across the board, and so I appreciate your sponsorship in that.
Well, in terms of communication, I'm not sure that there's any different communication to whoever it is that's going to. I don't, again, know who's communicating, but I wouldn't, I'll leave it at that. I'm not suggesting that there's some secret information. I'm just suggesting that there are multiple sides to a story. The story may be known by all parties, but different people tell different stories. And that would not be the first time that it happened in the last 15 years. But thank you. We'll continue, as I said before, all of us, the council is fully aware of this. We're getting updates from staff in terms of what's going on, and this is certainly not a situation where staff is not fully engaged in trying to reach a solution. So to that, you've succeeded many times over in getting everyone's attention and involvement and engagement and trying to come to a solution that is both compliant and one that hopefully is one that is acceptable to all the stakeholders. So thank you for your comments. Other questions or comments of a general nature from members of the audience? Questions or comments about things that are not on tonight's agenda? Good evening, Happy New Year, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Tim Werner. I live at 6736 Osage Place in Downers Grove, for the record. I'll keep my comments brief. Just over a year ago, I co-founded a group called Downers Grove for Responsible Government with my good friend, Mr. Tim Arms. Our mission was to promote greater fiscal responsibility in our village, and this came about while discussing our deep concerns of the then $52 million facilities plan. Our first step as DG for RG was to file a referendum asking Downers Grove citizens whether they approve of the current facilities plan. We knew the referendum was non-binding and that the council could move forward with the plan if they wanted to. But we felt strongly enough that the needs of the citizens should be heard on this issue. So we went forward with it. And while gathering the required signatures for our referendum, we came across incredible support. Many people signed our petition and then asked how they can help support what we're trying to do. And this made us realize how important this issue was to the village, not only to us, but to the community at large. The success of the referendum helped to bring real change to our village council. I think we can all agree that the current village council more accurately represents the will of the people. DG for RG has been very pleased with the direction of our council, has taken the direction that our council has taken during this year. Some of the highlights being a balanced budget, no increase in stormwater fees, the elimination of the old facilities plan, and the creation of a facilities sustainability plan. These actions demonstrate the type of stewardship we were hoping to see from our actions. We realized that providing the services needed in our village in the most cost-effective manner can be quite challenging. So patience is needed, and we do respect that. But DG for RG does look forward to any updates on this important facilities issue, and we will be glad to report them to the public at large. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Good evening. Other questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to items of a general nature? Very well. Well, I want to thank again all those who did come up and speak. We always appreciate hearing from everyone. That would bring us to item 5, which is our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Mayor Tully, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to any of the items on tonight's consent agenda? Any questions or comments from members of the Village Council with respect to any of these items? May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Fatimo? Aye. Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Burnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. Consent agenda passed unanimously. It brings us to item 6, our active agenda. We have no items on tonight's active agenda, so we'll go right to our first reading or our workshop segment of our meeting. This is an opportunity for staff to present items to the council and the public for discussion and consideration purposes only. No action will be taken on these items at this time. It is customary for the village manager to either introduce the items for that discussion or to designate someone else who might be able to do it. So Manager Fieldman, I will turn things over for you for the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Tully. The first two items of our four on the first reading agenda tonight have to do with the property at 6035 Middow Avenue. And our Community Development Director, Stan Popovich, has additional information on this petition. Stan.
Good evening, welcome and Happy New Year.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Happy New Year to you as well. Excuse me. As Manager Fieldman noted, the first two items are rezoning and a plat of subdivision for 6035 Middow Avenue. Property is located in south central Downers Grove, here shown outlined in purple, just a little bit north of 63rd Street on Middow Avenue there. If we zoom in a little bit with an aerial, the property is outlined in purple here, is 150 foot wide by approximately 292 feet deep. The property is currently zoned R1 as outlined here. Properties immediately to the north and south are also zoned R1. You see the larger properties to the west are also zoned R1, and the properties to the south, east, and north are primarily R3 with some smaller lots around them. Excuse me. The property itself here sits, there's a single-family home on the larger lot. It is zoned R1, and there is a single-family home with a garage on it as well. The petitioner is proposing to divide the lot into two 75-foot wide lots running east and west there, with Lot 1 on the north side and Lot 2 on the south side. The lots do meet the lot requirements, lot dimension requirements in the zoning ordinance and also in the subdivision ordinance. We require a minimum lot size of 75 by 140. These are 75 by 292. Petitioner is providing the easements along the rear and rear and side property lines as well. With regard to the comprehensive plan, it is single-family residential, so it does meet that because it would be rezoned to R3, which is more in line with the 75-foot wide lot. Generally, the R1 is 100-foot wide lots or wider. With regard to the zoning ordinance, the lot regulations, they meet that R3 standard, and then the rezoning standards are shown in section 12.030.I, which is also identified in the village's staff report to the Plan Commission. With regard to the subdivision ordinance, which is what we're looking at as well, the lot dimension standards are met in section 301. There are exception standards. The petitioner is requesting an exception from the installation of curb and gutter at this location. There is no curb and gutter currently on Middow at this location, nor are there imminent plans to put curb and gutter in. So staff is, petitioner is requesting an exception to not have to place curb and gutter at this location. The petitioners are here tonight. If you have any questions for them, they'd be happy to discuss their petition more for you, or if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer those questions as well.
Sure, I'll give you a chance to get some water.
Thank you.
As I believe they say in Arkansas, if you keep talking with a frog in your throat, you might end up with chicken lips.
I probably have that.
We don't want that to happen. We'll start with any questions or comments from members of the village council for Mr. Popovich, or actually, let me pause. I don't know if the petitioner wanted to say anything at this point in time. There's no obligation. Why don't we start with questions from village council of staff, and then we'll go to the petitioner, and then we'll go to any questions from the public. Questions from the council? Oh, that was fast. There's no questions from the council. I don't know if the petitioner wants to say anything. There's no obligation to say anything, but certainly want to afford you the opportunity to do so.
Good evening, Mayor Tully.
Good evening,
Council.
welcome.
Chuck Sebaski is my name, the petitioner. Stan, I think, summed it up well. I just thought only thing I'd add is that, we've lived in Downers, lived at this location for over 40 years. We also own the lot directly to the south of that. We just built a house there, and, we're going to continue to live there. Not much else to say about it. I said Stan did a pretty good job. I don't know if you have any questions for me at all or not.
I appreciate you getting up and sharing that. Any questions of the petitioner? No questions of the petitioner. Thank you. Any questions from members of the audience with respect to these items? And I know you touched upon A, B, and C.
A and
I
B.
think we took items
B.
A and B, Mayor.
Sorry.
Yes.
Item C, if we could move on, Mayor, is that all right? We'll move on to item C.
Sure, let's hold on a second because I misspoke. Any questions on A and B so far? All right, no questions in the audience. Now let's move on to item 7C as in Charlie, please.
which is the establishment of special service area number 9. This has to do with the subdivision at 1350 35th Street. We've had many previous discussions about establishing the special service area that would only be activated in the event that the homeowners association fails to maintain a stormwater management facility that serves only this subdivision. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have as we end the last step of creating this SSA.
Thank you. Questions from members of the council? I'll just add that this is a policy and practice that we have put into place now for approximately 5 or 6 years to address an issue where subdivisions would be created, there would be some maintenance obligation that would be the responsibility of either the developer or later on the homeowner association, and if those improvements fell in, typically a detention pond or something like that, they fell into disarray, and the homeowner association wasn't willing or able to maintain it, it created a situation that was problematic, and yet it wasn't something that the village really had any ability to do anything about, and it was a little bit of a vicious circle that kind of goes on and on. This practice that we've put in now for about the last, I think about 5 or 6 years, is one that gives the village a tool by which, if that situation that I just described arises, we have an ability to do something about it. So I'm very pleased that we continue to do this. I think it's something that we learned and then did something based on that knowledge for the betterment of future projects. Thank you. Any questions or comments from members of the public with respect to this item? Very good. Well, that brings us to item 7D as in David.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an item that would be a motion terminating the sales tax rebate agreement the village has with the Lemon Tree Grocer. This is a request to make some changes to the Lemon Tree grocery store operation, and Sean Black, one of the owners of the Lemon Tree, is here to present their plans for future changes and to outline their requests as it relates to the sales tax rebate agreement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Black.
How
Welcome.
are you,
Happy New
Mr.
Year.
Mayor, esteemed council people? Thank you for your time. I know there's a lot of busy items on the, and important items on the agenda tonight, so I'm also aware that a copy of a letter that was written to the village was submitted potentially in your packets. I'm not sure if everyone's read that letter. I don't want to be redundant here tonight, but I guess I'll just break it down quickly, and then if there's questions, I'm sure there are, then, you know, obviously we'd love to answer those. So we started Lemon Tree Grocer in 2010. We came in with the full intention of becoming a grocery store. We had a beer and wine package license and a beer and wine license in a cafe, which was a small area of our store. During the last 5.5 years, economic climate in the grocery business, especially in Downers Grove, obviously has changed significantly. There's many new players in the game. We've done everything we can to try to stay within the intention of the business originally, but also with a mind to change when our customers' needs changed, and obviously we needed to find our niche. We've struggled with that, clearly, but at the same time, we've really come to care about this community. We really want to make this business work. So we've gone back to the drawing board one more time. During that process of reevaluating the business and what it would take to become a sustainable business, I don't think I need to tell anyone here in this room or anywhere, we've lost quite a significant amount of money in the business, and we really truly want to become a viable, sustainable business in the downtown of Downers Grove. Like I said, throughout that time period, obviously we've come to care much about the community, and we really would love to be here. But during the process of the actual reconcepting of the business itself, it came to our understanding that, and it wasn't something we really were considering, that the current tax rebate, we would not necessarily fall within, because while there was no discussion of square footage, there's some other things there, I think, that make it so they don't fit. The plan, I guess, as you know, per the letter, we'd like to reconcept the business, keeping the grocery, but making it a much smaller size, just for economic reasons, and making the restaurant larger. And you know, so at that point, during talks with the village staff, you know, we tried to come up with a solution that was a win-win for the village and for the Lemon Tree. And obviously, we have investors and partners that, you know, this is a business decision, obviously. So, you know, a lot of things are being considered. So it's been really my task to come up with the solution. And I think, you know, working with village staff, I think we come up with one that should be a win for everybody. Under the new model, we would generate a much greater sum for the village in taxable dollars. We would also, you know, forego any, you know, additional rebate that we, you know, even though we're still maintaining a grocery presence, still have produce, grocery, meats, delis, just in a much more compact grab-and-go style rather than, you know, the traditional having somebody behind a deli counter. The labor has been it's been high for us, so it's something that needs to be managed. So these are basically the points to our request. There's also some other factors I think that should be considered. We've, you know, like I mentioned in the letter, we've walked into an extremely challenging situation in that building, Acadia number 3. Just from the very beginning, we've had different issues, plumbing issues. There's been ongoing issues with the building, and I'm not here to point blame anywhere. I'm just here to mention that the problems exist and that we've done our best to address them. We've spent thousands of dollars trying to address them, despite the fact that we did hire our general contractor at a premium that built the building with the intention of not having these issues. We've still had these issues. So it's affected our relationship with our neighbors, which of course should be your best customers. So I mean, that's been a challenge as well. It would not be our intention to go forward with any additional money or other resources into this project without fixing those issues that I know the village has been made aware of, not through us, but through, I think, a representative from the building. So we're committed to working with the landlord, who happens to be the former, it's a long story. I'm sure you guys are aware of it, but we're working with him. We're in discussion with him to try to remedy the situation because there's real issues. People are upset, and we don't want that. We're trying to be good community members. We've always tried to be good partners. I think we've done the best we could. Another thing to mention is we are taking on another partner that is more day-to-day management. So, because of the lack of income from the business, it's been difficult for myself and my partner to spend as much time there as we'd like. So it's just, I really think we could right some of the wrongs that we made with the decisions we made as far as making the grocery store as big as it was and some other things, and we could keep a downtown grocery store. I'm also, I've got a colleague here, I don't know, Christine, she's here. I don't like talking. I mean, we do a lot of great things. I thought, she actually really wanted to tell you guys about some of the good things that we've done with her, but I could sit here and talk about all the charities we work with, but other than that, I don't know when the appropriate right time would be for her to, if you guys had questions for me or you want me to come back up, or, I guess I don't really have, I don't have much else to say unless.
Sure. Well, thank you, Mr. Black. And just to answer that question, I think what we'll do is thank you for your comments. Sure. We'll pause here and let the council ask some questions. And then during the public comment segment is when I would suggest that if anyone else wants to comment or add from the perspective of the public, they'd certainly be welcome to do so.
Thank you.
So why don't we then start with members of the council if they have any questions on this item at this point in time. Commissioner White.
I think you made this very clear, but I'll just ask you again. That it's your intention to keep the downtown grocer just with a smaller footprint than you have now?
Absolutely.
Okay. I have read your letter, and there was some financial projections attached to it, and if I'm calculating it right, you're estimating that between 20 and 25% of your gross revenue is going to come from the grocer. Is that true?
That's a
Ballpark.
Yes, that's our estimate. I mean, we feel like we have a pretty good understanding of the economic climate around our business just from our experience, but I think that's our best guess.
Because if I understand, also, you never received any sales tax rebate except in the context of selling groceries, is that right?
Correct. Not to the restaurant.
Not to the restaurant, just purely groceries.
Just the grocery side.
Okay. I actually circulated a proposal with my colleagues earlier today. Were you made aware of it?
No, I wasn't.
Well, I guess I get to tell you.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
Get ready
actually,
to play Showdown Yahtzee.
I just do what you guys tell me.
Actually, before I go into it, I think you are making a compelling case. I very much want to keep the grocer in the downtown, and I very much want to see your business succeed. Basically, this is not just to summarize what I was proposing, is that as long as a grocer remain at that premises, the village make no effort to collect the amounts that would be recaptured by a failure to combine the agreement. And then going forward, for every dollar in sales tax that you generate from the sale of groceries, going forward, we forgive $1 of what's owed. And if you do generate about $700,000 a year going forward, in less than 4 years, that'll be paid down to zero.
Okay.
So as long as you keep a grocery store, I want you to succeed.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So as long as you keep it, and then, but because really part of my concern is simply walking away almost empty-handed from something that we negotiated a few years ago.
Yeah, I understand that.
So it's just, I'm looking for a win-win.
Yeah, no, and I really appreciate that. I think that's a
what you
great
want.
creative solution. I obviously have, as I mentioned, I have business partners and investors. I would just need to speak with about that. But I think it sounds like a very fair proposal. I can tell you that we have every intention of keeping the grocery store. I wouldn't stand before you and tell you that that wasn't the case. Anytime that we've requested change, it's only been because the economic climate demanded that we make changes, not because we wanted to make changes. Changes cost money, time, aggravation, frustration for everybody. So
And the proposal I circulated had no time limit. As long as the grocery store was open,
great.
no efforts be made. So
That makes- yeah,
so
that-
if the sales aren't as robust as you might predict, well, you take longer to pay it back. Because my understanding is, I wasn't on the council when the original agreement was passed, but the goal was to keep a downtown, was to allow a downtown grocer to open and allow a downtown grocer to stay. And I'm fully persuaded that we can't have in the downtown the type of thing we might want. There's just too much competition. It's not realistic to expect you to be all grocery store. It's just not, I just don't think, I'm persuaded that's not realistic. But I don't want to give up on the idea of a downtown grocer, so if we can encourage you to do that, then I'm all supportive of it.
That's great.
And then just speaking for myself, my colleagues may disagree. I'm well aware of the charitable actions of Lemon Tree. I'm fully persuaded of that. I don't need to hear about them because I know about them. Others may feel differently, but that's just where I'm coming from.
Great. Thank you for your comments. And I appreciate you putting that proposal together. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments from members of the council at this point? Commissioner Olson?
Thanks, Mayor. I think that, I view the proposal that Commissioner White just was discussing, and he circulated to, or Manager Fieldman sent it out this afternoon, and I'm generally favorably inclined towards that proposal. I think it makes a lot of sense and allows us to achieve multiple objectives, and so I see it. I'm generally favorably inclined towards it. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Commissioner. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Waldeck?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I hope that the Lemon Tree does reopen as a new business model. And if you do so, I wish you a lot of luck and success on that. And I don't want to say anything or dissuade the new business model. However, what's at issue is the current agreement and the letter from the owner, yourself, requesting the dissolution of the tax incentive. In telephone company terms, typical service phone lines is called a POTS, a P-O-T-S line. And that stands for plain old telephone service. Well, when the residents asked for a grocery store, what they wanted was a POGS, a P-O-G-S, or a plain old grocery store. And the Lemon Tree was never a plain old grocery store. And the debate and giving the agreement never referred to a plain old grocery store, but it did present it as a unique business with as a destination location. Apparently, the specialty grocery store is failing. The uniqueness, or being a destination, was insufficient to sustain the business as it is. Residents, prior to the Lemon Tree opening up, asked for a grocery store downtown. After it opened up, they say, when are we going to get a grocery store downtown? And don't say Lemon Tree. And that's the typical response. We have a number of tax rebates agreements with business, and dissolving this agreement and dissolving the Lemon Tree and absolving the Lemon Tree from their obligation is using taxpayer money to fund a business that will compete with other local businesses, other restaurants, within blocks of the location. And it sends a message that your tax rebate agreement may not be enforced to the detriment of our taxpayers. It's also been pointed out that the owners have contributed greatly to the community through various charities and charitable works, and that's wonderful. Yet in the years that the Lemon Tree existed, the relationship with the landlord and the tenants had not been resolved. They now want the use of taxpayer dollars to address those sewer and garbage issues that should have been solved years ago. So I asked my fellow council members, should we use taxpayer dollars to help a property owner and tenants to resolve their private sewer and garbage problems? And I point out that, for example, Bill Rowell, one of our residents, has worked for a number of years to resolve the garbage situation at the public library parking lot to little or no avail. Are we willing to throw $25,000 to help resolve that issue? Shouldn't be used for shouldn't use taxpayer dollars to resolve those types of issues. I would also suggest that the Lemon Tree needs, if they need $25,000, they might want to approach the District 58 to make a tax rebate agreement with them. I would also point out that an owner of the Lemon Tree contributed $20,000 to political campaigns, and now wants the taxpayers of the village to subsidize $25,000. At a time when sales tax is down and we raise property taxes, we're giving away over $25,000. You may recall about a year ago how the Lemon Tree on national TV publicly embarrassed the village government while the village worked diligently to meet the code in 24 hours. Who knows if any business watching at the time would get a negative feeling or assessment of the village government. We can twist and we can maneuver to give them the $25,000, which is what amounts is the bottom line is that the council is considering giving away $25,000 of taxpayer money to help fund a new business in the downtown and giving them a competitive advantage over other downtown businesses. They signed an agreement that they should never have had in the first place. They have not been taking care of their business responsibilities with the landlord and the neighbors. They publicly embarrassed the village on national TV. And I want the village, and now they want the taxpayers to subsidize them. So no matter how much lipstick you put on this is just plain wrong, 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 and I can't support it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments from members of the council? I see things a little bit differently than both of my colleagues. And part of it is informed by the lens of history. I probably am the only one that was here when all this started and starkly reminded of how we got here. And I think it is important to remember because it sets this situation apart from just about any other I can think of. So travel with me, if you will, back in time to when this all started. We used to do something called citizen surveys. And we sent out citizen surveys, and we would ask people in the citizen survey, what are the top X number of things you like in the town? What are the top things you would like to have in the town we don't currently have? And I'm summarizing, but generally speaking, what we would hear over and over and over again is, why don't we have a grocery store in the downtown like we used to? Ever since Forrest Finer Foods went out, I missed the grocery store in the downtown. Well, there's a reason why there wasn't a grocery store in the downtown, and I'm reminded of the famous line that Colonel Jessup says in A Few Good Men, which is, you can't handle the truth. The truth is that one wasn't going to be viable in the downtown, which is why we didn't have one. But nevertheless, the Economic Development Corporation director, executive president at that point in time, was more or less encouraged, if not asked point blank, figure out a way to get a grocery store into our downtown. And it wasn't a mandate, and it wasn't specified to be a plain old grocery store or any other kind of grocery store. It was just get a grocery store in the downtown. So what we had a grocery store that actually was coming to the south side of town, over on, in the 75th and Lamont area. And as part of an agreement with that grocery store, which, by the way, is long since gone, I would point out, there was a request made, well, is there any way you could possibly put a grocery store into the downtown? And the answer initially was absolutely not. Can't do it, because, go back to Colonel Jessup, can't handle the truth. People want one, but they're not going to support one that is going to allow it to be a viable business. So the arrangement that was worked out to try to get the people, when I say the people, I mean all of us, because the council at that time and the community generally was very much in favor of having a grocery store in the downtown, in concept. The arrangement was reached where, by going through an incentive arrangement, to have them open up a grocery store in the downtown. And that's how this all started. Now, mind you, and this is what makes this very, very, very different from any other incentive agreement we have, the business did not come to us and ask for an incentive. We asked the business to do something that they had told us they had no interest in doing. Now, a lot of the players who were involved back then aren't even around anymore. Things have changed, a lot of things have changed, businesses have come and gone, the people who were involved are gone. I've already mentioned a number of people who aren't even in this picture anymore. But that was the situation. I don't know of any other incentive agreement we have where we ask the business to do something they didn't want to do. Usually what we have is a business coming to us saying, we'd like an incentive because we want to do X, Y, and Z, and we look at that arrangement and try to decide, well, if right now we're getting 0 sales tax, and this is someone who has a choice of multiple communities to locate in, and they're going to choose our town, so we get some sales tax, but we're going to work with them and maybe rebate a portion of it. 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. At some point, that just makes good old-fashioned economic sense, as opposed to going to Lisle or Woodridge or Westmont, and then we get 0. That's not the situation. We asked the business to do something because we wanted to achieve this goal of having a grocery store in the downtown. Well, believe it or not, some thought it couldn't be done. It all worked out, and we had a grocery store in the downtown. Now, again, the main grocery store on the south side of town that started all this is no longer around. The Lemon Trees remained, and there have been some changes and modifications to the agreement with the Lemon Tree over time to try to keep it a viable business, because again, we've sort of had this community desire to have a grocery store in the downtown, whether or not it makes economic sense or not. And that's been a challenge. And we've done different things with trying to be creative with the ordinances, trying to be creative with liquor licenses, trying to, I know the owners have changed the business model on numerous occasions, just trying to adapt to the changing environment, no different than anybody else. Can't blame them for doing that. So we had this arrangement where we were rebating 100% of the sales tax revenue from the grocery only back to the store in order to basically, yeah, let's face it, the community from day one has been subsidizing a grocery store. And you may not be in favor of that, but that's what was more or less asked for. Now, the total amount, somebody remind me what the total amount of rebated sales tax from the grocery store has been since inception?
$38,000.
So we're talking, number one, about $38,000 since the very beginning. And I'm not suggesting that $38,000 isn't money that we should be concerned about, but we're not talking about hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in sales tax revenue here. We're talking about $38,000. So 100% of that was rebated back as a condition to even have the grocery store in the first place. I don't know about all of you, but I don't think $38,000 is going to really float someone's boat who otherwise isn't going to survive. But it was something at the time that was the arrangement in order to incentivize the original grocery store to go in the first place. So none of that money into the agreement was ever going to come to the village. And the other thing I want to point out here is this isn't, in my opinion, something where we're walking away empty-handed or we're giving away taxpayer dollars. Because if the Lemon Tree did what the agreement says for the period of time they were supposed to, the village would see exactly $0. Let me say that again. The village would have seen exactly $0 because the agreement was a 100% rebate. That meant all the sales tax revenue went back to the Lemon Tree. All that, whatever, today it's been $38,000, and if it went on for 13 years, the entire term of the agreement, it might have been at most $100,000 over 13 years. So if everybody had done exactly what the agreement says, we would have seen not one penny. So I don't see this as a situation where we're giving away any taxpayer dollars because we were never going to get any from the grocery portion. Now, in the meantime, we did get sales tax revenue. We did get whatever revenue we were going to get from the restaurant, which again grew and changed in size. And that sort of leads me to why I'm in favor of a modified version of what Commissioner White is talking about. Because on the one hand, I think there's an economic business solution here. It's a good old-fashioned economic business solution. We could stand on principle, and again, we were never going to see a penny of this anyway, so to stand on principle and still not see anything, to me, doesn't make a lot of business sense. But we could stand on principle and end up with a closed business and no money. Or we could try to be business friendly, as we always encourage staff to do, and be facilitators and not regulators, and end up with a new business, which by all projections is going to generate sales tax that we currently don't have. It will nevertheless still include a grocery component. Will it be a good old-fashioned grocery store, or a Costco or something like that? No, but we were never going to have that anyway. So we avoid a closed business, we have a restaurant that generates real dollars, more than what we're currently getting, and we nevertheless still have the grocery component. All those things we have on the plus side, and the only thing that we're being asked to do is to not go after and try to claw back about $25,000, that the only reason we would have any right to it is because the agreement is being asked to be terminated sooner than its full term. But for that request, we would never see a penny of that money. So we're talking about $25,000 that we weren't going to see anyway. So my view on it is I would like to see that the new business with a grocery store component actually comes to be. So my initial thoughts on this are I am willing, for the reasons I just described, and this is an extremely unique situation. I don't see it as setting precedent for anything, unless someone else wants to open up a grocery store in the downtown, and I'm sure if they did, you would have heard from them, Mr. Black. Because the big reason why I think this makes economic business sense is because we will see what should be hopefully a very successful restaurant that will generate new revenue and yet still maintain a grocery component. To Commissioner White's point, we would maintain that element, which is a piece of what the community has always asked for, yet perhaps not supported in a way to make it a viable business. But I'd like to see that actually happen. And so to Commissioner White's point, before agreeing to waive the clawback right, I would actually like to see the restaurant open. Where I differ with Commissioner White is I am not necessarily committed or desirous of having an earn back, but I would like to see it at least happen, because part of my thinking is I think it makes economic sense to waive it in order to facilitate what should be a better solution, but I'd like to see that better solution actually open its doors.
Absolutely.
So where I'm kind of initially at is I'm inclined to grant the waiver of the clawback, but I would like to wait perhaps until the doors open.
That's fantastic, Mr. Mayor. Would it be feasible for us to get, I guess so we wouldn't be currently in violation, of our agreement, so we can get the permits necessary in order to attain this, what you're...
I believe so, and clearly...
that would just be my only concern.
I'm kicking this around. This is why
Sure.
it's a workshop, because we discuss these things. We're not we're not taking any actions tonight. We're not deciding anything. This is just my current thinking. Clearly, under the scenario I just contemplated, waiting would not be designed or intended to in any way forestall what it is I'd like to see,
Absolutely.
which is a flourishing new business open up that would generate sales tax revenue we currently don't have.
Great. We're excited for the grocery as well as the restaurant. Again, I appreciate all the comments, even negative ones. You know, we're not perfect. We've certainly made mistakes. We'd like a chance to be better neighbors, to be better community members. I mean, we're here with our true intentions. This is what we're planning on doing. This is what we'd like to do. And, you know, with your grant, then this is what we'll do. So.
Well, I don't know what we're going to do yet, because we're not taking final
understand.
action tonight, and my comments were as much for the historical background and your benefit as they were for my colleagues' benefit. I want to give them the full scope, and also just where my head is. I see the wisdom behind, and part of what Commissioner White is saying is, let's not wave the clawback on the promise of something we may never get. I fully understand that, and that's why I would, right now, I'm in the mind of, well, why don't we just wait until
Absolutely.
the business opens, and then, okay, now we've got the business, great, now I'm willing to
Absolutely.
to waive the clawback. That's my current thinking.
And I'm sure that my partners would absolutely be.
And you don't even have to say anything one way or the other, right?
Just want to make sure that
This is just.
the biggest concern was just not holding up the approval process of permits, et cetera, because we were in violation of the original agreement. So that's, I guess, would be the only, that.
Sure.
Yeah. So.
Understood,
Okay.
that's not my
Other
intention.
than that, then I don't have any further questions or
That's
concerns.
not my intention, but that's something I certainly can discuss with our staff, is to see whether there are any intricacies that need to be worked out there.
Great.
But again, that was more for my colleagues' benefit than anything else.
I just want to
Commissioner
say,
Bettimo?
I think I agree with what Mayor Tully said and Commissioner White, but I also think that the issues of the building need to be addressed, with the plumbing and the
Absolutely.
sewer. I mean, I think there's some real issues there that
Absolutely.
need to be addressed, and I don't want to see the business leave. I like it, I'm all in favor of the restaurant and some grocery.
Okay.
But I think it's fantastic. I think it's fantastic what you guys do in the community. But, you have to be held accountable also for the people who live in that building.
Understood.
And the issues that have come up.
And I, thank you for that. Can I just mention something, with respect to the issues, the plumbing issues? I should have been more descriptive when I had mentioned it, but again, I know for lack of time here, there have been many issues. We've solved issues. This is not, there are certain obstacles that we face with our neighbors, and they've been outlined in the letter, so they're certainly not ones that we're trying to hide. Some are geographical restrictions with square footage. We've proposed some solutions to these problems to try to make our neighbors happy, all of them, all the time. I'm sure you guys probably hear from the ones that aren't happy the most. That's just the way life goes, it seems, but there's plenty that are. We just want to solve, we do want to solve those issues. In fact, I've written a lot of checks to solve these problems. I think there's a bigger issue there. I think there's a bigger issue with plumbing that needs to be revisited. We've had discussions with the village regarding this. We're going to have real plumbers with real experience in commercial restaurants coming through here trying to, these are not easy problems to solve. We've been trying to solve these problems that, quite frankly, you ask somebody, they'll give you, 5 different people, they give you 5 different answers as to what the problem is. And again, we didn't shortcut this when we built it. We paid for what we thought we were getting was a solid construction. We used the construction company that the village entrusted to build the entire, Acadia 1, 2, and 3. We thought that was the safest bet. It turned out, that there were issues. I mean, I don't want to comment on, I don't know enough about them, but there have been issues. We're committed to working with our current landlord to fix these issues. We certainly would not want to come back without having these issues fixed, because whether we're there or whether we're not, those issues still exist. They're not from the Lemon Tree grocer per se. They're from plumbing that was built for the space that we paid for but we don't own. Ironically that is.
And appreciate that, and we probably drifted a little bit off where we.
Thank you.
I think
Yeah.
Commissioner Bettimo made her point, and those issues would have to be resolved whether you were there or somebody else was there.
Absolutely.
But thank you. Any other questions or comments from the
Very
council?
briefly, very briefly.
Absolutely, Commissioner
Okay.
White, please.
First, in my opinion, the plumbing issue should not be intertwined with the sales tax issue in any way.
Understood.
If the village has a plumbing code, it should be enforced. doesn't matter. So I don't want to see that issue tied to the sales tax question. Just, maybe the other people different. I should say you. Everybody associated with the building has to comply with the plumbing code. And as far as, and I don't want the village getting in the middle as to this has to be done. And that's all I want to say about that. I do want to comment though that whether we buy it out or not, with a $3 million projected annual revenue, just want to say for everybody who's been here, $25,000 is not going to make a difference whether the new business succeeds or fails. It's just a matter of whether we're showing a sign of encouragement. I also am of the opinion that the build-out cost to reconceptualize it the way you want, you're going to, that if you didn't want a grocery to keep going, you'd say you'd give the village the $25,000 back and go 100% restaurant. I mean, because that would be, you're right. You could just write the village a check and you'll spend more than $25,000 in build-out keeping the grocery.
Absolutely.
So my point more is the optics of saying that you just can't walk away from the promise to give us a grocery. It doesn't cost you anything because you're going to keep a grocery anyways, and you're going to make more than $25,000 in grocery anyways. So we all end up in the same place at the end. But optically, we're saying, we're sticking to our agreement. But at this point, we're counting angels on the head of a pin, and I don't feel real strongly either way. As long as I feel comfortable that there's going to be a grocery in the downtown, much smaller than many might like, for the definite future, then I don't really have a problem with it. If there's not going to be a grocery, then you owe us the money. It's that simple.
Commissioner Barnett.
Thanks, Mayor. Sean, I appreciate you coming here, and I appreciate you trying to work out a plan. I'm still processing stuff. I got the memo that Bill circulated sometime this afternoon, and I've read it through briefly once. And I just want to say that I thank you for trying to work something out and that results in an ongoing enterprise within our village. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
$25,000, I suppose it's all a matter of perspective. It can be a ton of money.
Sure.
And, for a small business, whether it's $3 million or $4 million or $5 million, I can tell you firsthand it can be a lot of money. And I just, I'll give this some serious consideration over the next week here. And if I get some questions about the proposal that Bill put out there or Mayor's modifications to it, I'll circulate those around and hopefully we can find a route forward that makes everybody feel good about tomorrow and next year and a couple of years after that. Thanks for coming.
No, that's all we're looking for. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Jose? Thank you, Mayor. And I'll come back to you, Commissioner Waldeck, and I'll give people who haven't spoken a chance.
That's fine. Thank you. I just want to thank you for coming down, Sean. I've seen firsthand a lot of the charitable work that you and the Lemon Tree have done, and I do truly appreciate it. I want to join the chorus of my colleagues in saying that I do believe that there's great value in having a grocer, regardless of whether it's big or small, in the downtown area. And I appreciate the mayor giving the history behind the agreement in its complete form, because I do think it's incredibly difficult. I think experience has shown that it's incredibly difficult for a grocer of any size to compete in the downtown area. The question is ultimately going to be, is it worth $25,000 in some form or another, whether it's a waiver or whether it's a forgiveness of that $25,000 over time in order to keep a grocer in the downtown area. I appreciate the proposals that have come forward, and I look forward to considering them. But I do think there's tremendous value in keeping the Lemon Tree in whatever modified form it is. We've just got to find the right solution to get there. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Waldeck?
Thank you. I do want to encourage the new business model. My problem is the taxpayer money and the agreement, and the 25, and everybody calls it a grocer. And maybe what we need to do is decide what the heck a grocer is and define it, because to the residents, they carry some items that are grocery, but it's not really considered the grocery store. There's the seniors in the area are still hopping in cars and cabs and such and shopping elsewhere. And I just think it's wrong to because what'll happen is this money is actually forgiven and will be used to help fund competition with other businesses in the downtown, other restaurants. We just lost another business, the Olive Tap will be going. We have olive oil.
At least they blame
That's
that on the
grocery.
state.
That's grocery. Well, maybe we should offer them $25,000. Or maybe we should line up the restaurants, you know, from Subway, Capri, Valley Doyle, I can't name them all, but they should all be lining up and asking for $25,000 as well of taxpayer money. And the question is, if we don't give away this money, and I do call it taxpayer money, it is sales tax that was given to the village that we return, but it is tax money. I just have a problem with funding competition. And if that money, if it's $25,000 or $21,000 or whatever it is, are you intending not to open up if you don't get the money? If we insist on taking the $25,000, are you going to close up the store?
Is that a question?
Okay, yeah, it'll be a question.
Again,
We can go ahead with or without the 25.
Commissioner Waldeck, thank you for your question.
Thank you.
I don't have all the answers tonight, as you don't. I think it's prudent for everyone to take this feedback that we've gotten, discuss things with you guys amongst however you do it in the political world, and for me with my business partners. But thank you for your comments, and I would like to take this moment to mention that we do give milk, we match milk prices and egg prices. We always have, we always will. So seniors are always welcome, and we do appreciate all your.
And I appreciate all that. I don't want to get too much into regulating what's on your shelves, because we certainly wouldn't do that with any other business in town, unless the code specifically spoke to it, which it doesn't. So I think what you said, if I understood, is that the question's out there, and we're not making any decision tonight.
No, we're just really hoping to try to work through this and come up with a creative solution that's a win for the community, for the village, for our group, and for the building that we reside in. So.
And I certainly understand where you're coming from, Commissioner Waldeck. Don't get me wrong. I understand it completely. And I also understand that this
difference of opinion.
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely a difference of opinion, and it's just my perspective. I don't think that means what you think it means in terms of forgiveness, but you're right, it's a difference of opinion. I view it as something we were never going to get anyway, so it's not giving something away or forgiving something, because had they simply stuck around for the full term of the agreement, we wouldn't have gotten anything. So we're not giving up anything that wasn't already given up in the original agreement. Yes, we do have a right to claw it back. That would be something we would be giving up, being asked to give up, and that's why, to Commissioner White's point, I'm open to the idea of, well, let's at least see the new business come into place with the promise of its revenue and the grocery component. So at least that's the consideration, if you will, for the waiver of the clawback, because our only right would be to go after the principals for the cash, and if they close up the business and leave, that's almost it's a dicey prospect for that amount of money. You'd spend more chasing it than you would what you'd ever recover. I think the business solution here is to have a viable business open up that contains a grocery component. There's obviously also a difference of opinion as to what a grocery is, and I don't know if I fully appreciated what your perspective was until tonight, so thank you for sharing that. I don't know what it's one of those things where I think it was Justice Potter that once said, I can't define it, but I know when I see it. I think everyone's going to see it. Some things on a shelf, and one person's grocer is someone else's kiosk. I don't know. But at any rate, I don't want to get into that level of detail as to where the pineapples ought to be next to the breadfruit.
I don't know.
Other questions before I go to the audience? Other questions or comments from members of the council? All right, thank you, Mr. Black. I know you're not going anywhere, but at this point in time, I'll open it up for any questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to...
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're still on item 7, D as in David, the motion to terminate sales tax rebate agreement. Good evening and Happy New Year.
Hi, Marjorie, 4720 Florence Avenue. I've been here for the discussion as to when Lemon Tree opened. I know Commissioner Waldeck was, Mayor Tully, you were, many others were watching. I know the hoops that you and the village staff have gone through in adjusting liquor licenses and agreements to keep them in town despite many people's dismay, maybe, because, and I say that because even though the Lemon Tree has put out a front to be a good neighbor, they actually have trod upon a lot of the goodwill of their neighbors in not just the building, but in the downtown area, at the YMCA, during the farmers market. They give a good speech, but they don't walk the walk. I have, from the very start, been one of their customers who has gone back to their restaurant time and time again, only to be dismayed at the fact that they do not know how to run a restaurant. The food is delicious, but they can't run a restaurant. And if they can't run a restaurant, I can't see how they can be expected to fulfill their end of the agreement at all, and I would rather see us just cut loose and take the loss and hopefully open up to that space to somebody who actually could run a restaurant and could maybe bring some value to the downtown, whereas they have worn out their goodwill with all of their customers and then have gone on national TV and proceeded to say they were overhauling themselves, embarrassed the village in the process, and then continued to treat their customers in the same consistently poor manner, even after embarrassing all of us and themselves on national TV. And I find that horrible and fascinating at the same time. There's no putting their tail between their legs and slinking off into the night. They're here asking for more goodwill from our village, more goodwill from the people of this town, and more hospitality than at this point I'm willing to give. And if they've lost my business so often, I can't imagine that there's much more of a forgiving person who's willing to give them another chance. So do with it what you will, but I have less faith than you do in the people that will be running this restaurant. I hope I'm wrong if that's the case. Thank you.
Thanks. Sounds like they've got some work to do to meet your customer expectations. Good evening, welcome, Happy New Year.
Good evening, my name is Christine Ferris. I've been a resident of Downers Grove since 1999. So I'm also a mother of 3 boys, as well as a 3rd grade teacher in the Hinsdale School District. I'm here tonight actually on behalf of Lemon Tree Grocer for Tim Canning and Sean Black. I'm here also to point out to the committee that I'd like them to be recognized for all of their efforts that they have given to this community. It's very interesting to hear everyone's perspective, as well as other residents here in Downers Grove. I have a 100% complete experience from what I just heard. I started back, as I said, I'm a mother as well as a teacher, but I also am a fundraiser. Back in 2010, I started raising money for pediatric cancer for local families in Downers Grove. It was very difficult for me to get other businesses in Downers Grove to support me. Unfortunately, in 2011, I approached Tim Canning and Sean Black to see if they could help me fundraise for local families. So looking forward, it's now 2016. I have had 6 charity events at Lemon Tree Grocer with their support and partnership. So I've had 5 fundraisers alone for pediatric cancer and other diseases for local families that need our help, as well as a gentleman who is suffering pancreatic cancer stage 4. With that being said, I could not have raised close to $100,000 for these local families. I wanted to give back to the community, give to families who weren't as fortunate as I have been in health with my children. Tim and Sean were eager and ambitious business owners who listened to my story back in 2011, opened their doors, and just like they have evolved to listen to their community, I have evolved with them in my charity fundraising. I have seen what they've done. I have seen how they've touched families' lives. Without them, I could not have raised that amount of money for our local families. I reached out to the families here in Downers Grove who I have raised money for and asked and let them know that I was going to speak here tonight on their behalf. But not only did I choose Lemon Tree, if you look at their location, it's perfect for other towns and other residents of different towns to come visit us here in Downers Grove. They're right at the train. There's ample parking. They've got delicious food. And with all that being said, it's the business owners who give back. I'd like to share this quickly with you. These are words of families that Tim and Sean have touched. 2 words, life-changing, comes to mind when our family hears anything about Lemon Tree. Tim and Sean, on February 28th, 2015, our lives were changed because of the generosity and kindness of these incredible human beings. They think they gave us the Gojo benefit hosted at the Lemon Tree, but to this day they will never fully understand what they really have given us. Hope, light, love, peace, strength, and courage to fight each day. Almost 1 year later, and our family still draws energy from the amazing benefit to fight because of them. This is not just a restaurant or a grocery store. It is a treasure that is located in this very lucky town of Downers Grove. Tim and Sean have the largest hearts, and we will forever be grateful to both of them. True heroes are in Downers Grove, Shannon and Joe Pasiga. Another family, Jacob Kowalik's family, have also said owners of Lemon Tree Grocer started out following their dream. When they opened their doors in Downers Grove, they changed it to follow the amazing friendly town's dreams and are always listening to what they would like. They're very generous owners and giving people. They're always trying to please Downers Grove friends. So what I want you to hear is that they are a grocery store with a restaurant, but this is 2016. This isn't 1950 where we have this little grocery store that's mom and pop. That's not what we need in this town. We need a flourishing, great place where friends can gather, charities can gather, book clubs can gather. They've got a beautiful patio, great food. I've had nothing but wonderful service there. So what we need to consider is that we do need businesses like this. We do need business owners like this. We don't need another pizza place in Downers Grove. We don't need another Italian restaurant. I try to get to those people to help support local families, and it's been difficult. So what we do need to do is I appreciate everything that they've done for me and for the local families here, and I do hope that we can consider helping them grow because it isn't giving them $25,000 in taxes. What they're doing for us is giving us a town that's flourishing, getting other towns to come visit us. Being a Hinsdale teacher, I have parents from Hinsdale, Clarendon Hills that do take the train, that do come to Downers Grove. And isn't that what we want? We want to flourish. We want to be that town that gives back. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. And it's not my habit to, as everyone knows, to cut people off. I rarely enforce the 5-minute rule and give people a lot of leeway. And last 2 comments, I just want everyone to understand that we're going to focus on the request that's before us. And I think Commissioner White said there's really no question about the charitable involvement or community involvement. That's not really, well, that's wonderful, not really the issue. Likewise, some of the comments about service and things like that aren't necessarily the issue. There's plenty of businesses that we are business friendly to and try to facilitate their opening up, and whether they ultimately are successful or not is entirely on their own merits. So I don't want to leave the impression with anyone watching from home, while all comments are appreciated, that how many checks you write in town is going to somehow change the outcome, or we're going to have people lining up on how many, or what your rating is on Yelp. That's not really what we're going to focus on in terms of making our decision, I would hope. But we'll take all this into consideration and move forward.
No, thank you. Thank you. I just think that we do need to consider all these things because we just don't need a storefront. We do need good value and good people.
I think
Thank you.
that, I don't disagree with you. I think that is a conversation, but perhaps in a different forum.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from members of the audience? Well, thanks to everyone who did speak. That brings us to the end of our first reading, our workshop agenda.
Just to close on that one, we have a couple of options that have been considered by the council. Amend the agreement as proposed by Commissioner White. We'll call that the earn back proposal. Then we have a second option, which is to put the collection of some of the terms of this agreement in abeyance and reconsider it when the new business opens. I will be reaching out to each of you in the next week to try to figure out which of those options comes forward and under what time frame.
Very good.
Thank you. That ends our first reading tonight, Mayor.
Thank you very much. That brings us to item 8, the mayor's report. I do have a few things to report out on tonight, and coincidentally, they all pertain to stormwater. First of all, as has been my custom, I've been trying to update everyone on what's going on with floodplain mapping. And as of late last month, I wanted to let you know that the Illinois State Water Survey, the ISWS, sent out open house comment acknowledgement letters to 20 DuPage County communities. The remaining letters will be sent out, probably already have been sent out. The remainder will be sent out in early January to remaining DuPage County communities, communicating the need for any revised preliminary products. There's also going to be further solicitation of technical data from communities such as Downers Grove regarding data. So basically what all this means is the floodplain mapping update project continues. I do want to let both my colleagues and our fellow residents know that a number of our residents here in Downers Grove took the time and effort to weigh in and communicate comments to DuPage County Stormwater Management regarding the preliminary flood insurance maps and reports. As you recall, I pointed out that there would be opportunity for people to view those on the county website. There's a link available on our website, and they can make comments directly. FEMA was very nice to send me a letter acknowledging comments from a number of our very own residents here in Downers Grove. Didn't surprise me at all. We have a very informed and engaged community, as is demonstrated every Tuesday night when we have a council meeting. And for that, we are very grateful. So I want to let those residents who did write in know that your comments were received by FEMA, and they even wrote me a letter acknowledging that you had sent those comments in, and they were being included in the overall assessment. So that's item number 1, floodplain mapping update. Number 2, DuPage County Stormwater Management Committee staff is in the process of updating, let me back up a minute. The Illinois EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, is in the process of updating the requirements of the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, or NPDES. And traditionally, since this first went into place, probably about 10 years ago now, Phase 2 of the Clean Water Act, there are 6 minimum control measures that have to be undertaken by anyone with responsibility for federal waters, and Downers Grove has such waters in it. The concern back then was that that would come as substantial cost and would be a very expensive unfunded mandate to municipalities like Downers Grove. Fortunately, DuPage County basically took over doing 3 of those 6 minimum control measures, which helped out a lot of municipalities. And to date, 41 communities within DuPage County rely upon the county and its staff for those first 3 minimum control measures. I won't bore you with what they all are. If you really want to know, see me offline. The county is now contemplating doing all 6 for municipalities. This would allow regional permits to be issued as opposed to what's done now, and it may be that municipalities individually don't have to do any more permits. This does require some additional effort at the county level and probably some additional investment in staff in order to do what they had been doing before in terms of best management practices. So the question that I posed this morning to county staff was, well, what are the financial impacts on this? Is this going to cost more at the county level but less at the municipal level? How is that going to work? The short answer was, to reference the magic 8-ball, answer cloudy, ask again later. They're going to get back to the staff as to exactly what it means, but their initial thoughts are that this may all wash out such that it results in an overall decreased net cost to municipalities to work through the county for these 6 measures, as opposed to doing it through individual municipalities. So stay tuned on that. This could be a good example of further cooperation and collaboration that might make things easier and hopefully save us a few bucks, but too early to tell. And I know that we'll get more information on that. Our Stormwater Administrator, Karen Dalton-Lang, was, of course, in attendance, and she's forgotten more about this stuff than I'll ever know. Last, just wanted to mention that, or not last, 2 more things. One, the county is also undergoing implementation of a strategic initiative to have its own stormwater maintenance crew for various types of maintenance of everything from grass cutting to cleaning out stormwater areas and culverts. This is something that the county views as, by insourcing this, it will save them money. Why does this matter for us? It's because since they have this crew, or will have this crew in the next 6 to 12 months, there are opportunities that present themselves for joint projects between municipalities and county using their labor, so to speak. So we'll have to see, as the staff come on board and as the equipment comes on board, whether there are opportunities for us to do some stormwater things here in Downers Grove in conjunction with DuPage County resources. Something to keep in mind. And then last but not least, the county is also implementing a required, I think it's going to be a 2-hour training program for stormwater administrators or others charged with that function within the municipality to make sure that there's better appreciation of things like identification of wetlands and floodplains. From time to time, historically, there have been some issues where someone will go to a community, which will remain nameless, and ask a question about whether an area is wetland or floodplain, and they're given the wrong answer, so they go ahead and start construction on that site, and then the county catches wind of it and finds out it's a huge no-no. So this training is designed at better education of municipal stormwater administrators and engineers so that to avoid those situations happening in the future. So if you hear about that from staff down the road, this is an early warning mechanism. So that was a lot of stuff, but I wanted to report it out because those are, I thought, 4 things that could potentially have an impact upon us as Downers Grove from the stormwater standpoint. And I'll entertain questions.
I have one.
Please, by all means.
Thank you. Does this kind of lead the way for the possibility of a countywide stormwater utility fee?
Well, that's still out there. I don't know if any of what I just said is going to make it any more or less likely. I believe, and this is just little old me, as I'm still Martin Tully, this is just little old me talking, that once the county is done with its, what do we now call it? We used to call it the Watershed Improvement Plan. We have a new name for it now.
Stormwater project analysis.
Stormwater project analysis, which is basically an identification of all projects and then prioritizing those projects, what their cost is and how they've been undertaken. I think once the county finishes that project, then the next issue will be, okay, here are all our projects, how are we going to pay for them? And that's when that discussion will come forward. And stay tuned, that could be 2016.
Thank you.
That's this year. I know.
Holy cow.
Any other questions that I will be sure not to answer? Commissioner Barnett?
Yeah, I just couldn't help but sit here and think the same thing Bill was thinking. Sounds a lot like the beginnings of justification for a new revenue source that can be counted on to support all these activities and added folks. So I guess we'll just have to be along for the ride as it relates to the county. I hope that we're not headed down that road, obviously. But see, it looks like a very familiar path, if you will, Mayor. Let's identify all of our needs, figure out some additional service levels that we ought to probably be doing, and then talk about how we might support that from a revenue standpoint. It's, I hope I'm wrong, but my first reaction was very much like Bill's. I saw Commissioner Olson make some faces that were interestingly similar, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I'm certainly hopeful that's not where this is headed.
It's exactly what's headed. The question is, because the survey that went out, this is just, God bless you, this is just reflective of things that were picked up in the survey that I talked about several times before, where everyone was interviewed, everyone came in, all the communities added the list of things that they identified as issues, counties put them all together. I think I shared the report with everyone maybe a month or so ago, identifies the 4 different categories of projects, and the county has a recommended level of what they would like to go. It's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's something that's just right. There's a price tag that's associated with that, and the question is going to be how to pay for it. Whether that's a utility is another question, because they could just do it through, they could do it through other means. But that conversation is coming. I promise you that. That's not an if, that's a when.
I would toss in a brief gratuitous comment. The state legislation that authorizes DuPage County to issue a stormwater utility applies only to DuPage County and is potentially, may or may not be, in violation of the special legislation clause of the Illinois Constitution. So there's very interesting, complex, a lot of lawyers are doing a lot of work before there's a stormwater utility.
All I know is I've made very clear is that they go down that path of utility, that we wanted a big exemption, because we already have one.
Well, municipalities don't have that issue under home rule. The counties need.
So
very interesting topic.
I continue to work with my fellow mayors who represent the other districts and DuPage mayors and managers to make sure that we're representative of municipal viewpoints on these issues.
Yes,
This is why I report these things out, is so that everybody's aware of them.
How do we fit into that? Is our, you know, you say we want a big exemption because we already have one. But for those that don't have one, those other municipalities, part of DMMC that don't have one, there would certainly be a benefit to them from a resources available to help solve some of their problems as opposed to they might have to do them themselves.
Yes.
Of the county doing this. So are we kind of at odds with our DMMC colleagues on that?
Right now, no, because we're nowhere near that point. It's premature to say that one way or the other. There are, if you look at the survey results of the report that identified, the name of it is escaping me exactly, but the survey results of the county information collection, clearly there are a number of areas that municipalities are aligned on in terms of assistance from the county. For example, regional permitting makes a lot of sense, rather than everyone having their own, having to do the 6 minimum control measures separately, having the county do that. In fact, we've been doing that for the first 3 for many years. That makes perfect sense, and it's probably a better level at which to do that. But there are a number of areas where I think municipalities are fully aligned. But you're right, there are other areas where some communities it's more important to get dollars from the county in order to make purchases of land that might flood, then that might not be as important in Downers Grove. I think that's partly what drove the middle choice of staff right now, or the middle recommendation, because if you go to the other end, it includes a lot of programs that maybe you don't have as much alignment on by municipalities. But whether anybody's at odds with it, I think it's too early to tell, would be my candid answer. Potentially, sure, but we'll work through it. 7 of us work through our differences. I'm hoping that 34 municipalities can work through theirs. Any other questions, stormwater related or not? Other than that, that ends my report. That brings us to item 9, our village manager's report.
Just a quick addendum to your report. The Village of Downers Grove will be participating in the training that the mayor mentioned about the application of wetland regulations and floodplains. I'm happy to say, though, that the nameless community of the misapplication of those things is not Downers Grove. So we've had a great track record under the leadership of Karen and Nan. That ends our report. Thanks.
Yes, it is not Downers Grove. I know who it is. Yes, and the training I mentioned is required because if you don't attend, they start to question your full waiver status.
Yes, that's correct.
And we don't want that.
Thank you, Mayor.
We don't want that. Thank you for that, additional information. That brings us to item 10, attorney's report. We have our assistant village attorney here tonight. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Pursuant to section 2.5 of the Downers Grove Municipal Code, the following are presented for village council consideration. An ordinance rezoning certain property located at 6035 Meadow Avenue and an ordinance establishing special service area number 9 in the village of Downers Grove, Illinois. And these will appear on next week's active agenda. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Brings us to item 11, council member reports. This is an opportunity for members of the village council to report out on items that they are liaisons to or other goings-ons or items of interest in the community. We'll start tonight with Commissioner Barnett. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Mayor. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Commissioner White, Happy New Year.
I do have a report. It's unusual for me to do so, but there's something that's very interesting.
Special treat.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Staff very graciously agreed I have 5 slides, which helps with this. I'm a member of a nonprofit group called Friends of the Gifted, FROG. FROG has been doing enrichment classes at O'Neill Middle School perhaps for 30 years, a long, long time. The name's a little unfortunate. Our current philosophy is that every child's gifted in one way or another, so there's nothing, nothing about that. But anyways, what we've branched out this year for the first time is, for the next slide, is we've started a speaker series. And our goal is to have 6 speakers over the course of the year. We've been doing them at Ballydoyle's on a Monday or Tuesday evening. If they're Tuesdays, I make sure at the end of the month, so they don't conflict with our council meetings, no admission fees. Our plan for this year is 4 headline speakers. These are accomplished professionals in various fields who talk about what they're doing. And I'll give 2 examples of the ones I spoke already in a minute. But what I'm very excited about is we also are giving opportunity for student speakers, at a minimum seniors in college or a little bit beyond, who have a local connection here to Downers Grove, which can provide role models for our local students. Go to the next slide. The people who have spoken already, they've been really wonderful presentations. In November, a professor from the School of Public Health at Chicago Circle, I guess that shows how old I am. You're still
That's really old.
That's sort of ancient.
Stop calling it Circle before I went there.
So, basically, he gave a really marvelous talk about everything involving in life expectancy, what types of things you can do to extend your lifespan, what some of the consequences were. Very intelligent, very, very cheerful, vibrant talk. The first talk of the season, back in September, Dr. Jack Gilbert he's just one of the most brilliant men I think I've ever had occasion to meet personally. He's at various places at Oregon, University of Chicago, elsewhere. He travels all around the world. He's one of the world's leading expert in what they're calling the microbiome, which is a brand new area of biology having to do with the bacteria that live within our guts. And basically, the idea that we can eradicate bacteria just is impossible. And that talk was amazing, absolutely amazing. I hope to have him back next year because he was fabulous. Now we have 2 speakers now scheduled for January. Next Monday, January 11th, actually there's a senior at the University of Illinois, a graduate of Downers Grove North, who happens to be my daughter. So there's no, I'm just disclosing that. She's going to give a talk about satellites because she's going to have she's on track to graduate with a degree in aerospace engineering and physics. And that presentation will be at 6:45 at Ballydoyle's, free, open to the public. But what I'm also excited about is that at 6 p.m., there'll be an informal discussion for high school or junior high students or even younger that want to meet and talk with her. She'll talk about applying to college, about what it's like to be a woman in a STEM field, what it's like to be a woman in aerospace engineering, where it's just not that common right now. Then if we go to the end of January, we have a professor from the University of Chicago explaining why good sleep is an important part of a healthy lifestyle. And I think we all need more sleep. I don't think anybody's going to disagree. And that gives us the 4. We'll go to the last slide there. Right now, I can't name names or topics, but I think I have another Downers Grove North graduate all lined up to give a talk at the end of February, beginning of March. She will also be available to talk to students. She's an expert, unbelievable expert in her in her niche, but I can't say more because it's not finalized yet. And we're reaching out. I'd like to find somebody who can talk about architecture. And that may or may not happen. That's a topic that I'm looking at. Stay tuned for further details. It's the first year that we're doing this. The topics aren't necessarily related to any particular issue, but thus far, it's just been a wonderful time and a chance to learn about areas you might not otherwise learn about, and we hope to give our residents, our younger residents, an opportunity to grow as well. So thank you. That's my report.
Thank you. And you better find somebody who's a graduate of Downers Grove South to speak,
Absolutely.
or you're going to start getting emails.
That's going to have to be balanced. It's going to have to be balanced.
One from me.
Thank you for
You
the...
can speak.
No, thank you. I'm not that smart.
Thank you for the report. Commissioner Jose.
No report, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Happy New Year, by the way. Commissioner Waldeck, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year and no report.
Thank you. Commissioner Vitimo, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year and no report.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson, Happy New Year to you as well.
Thank you, Mayor. I did want to comment, Tim Warner spoke earlier. It is exactly 1 year since that referendum petition was filed with the village. And I think that, when Mr. Warner discussed that and the work that he's done and the work his group has done. I think, you know, it's once again a reflection of that this council has been very responsive to the residents and their will that expressed through referendum. So I want to thank my colleagues for their work, and then also to, you know, all the residents who really hold our feet to the fire and you know, make sure that, you know, we're staying on track. So look forward to Mr. Werner, Mr. Harms, and of course many other residents continuing to do that in the year to come. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. I have nothing to add to my earlier report, other than folks may have heard that the Lieutenant Governor unveiled the report of the task force on unfunded mandates and local government consolidation initiatives in a press conference earlier this week that the governor attended along with DuPage County Chairman Dan Cronin. If you're looking for some late night reading material, it bursts over 400 pages long, but there is an executive summary that covers the 27 points that the governor is urging implementation over time. As he pointed out in his comments, along with the Lieutenant Governor, it won't be easy. There's a fair amount of agreement on many things, but not agreement on all things. But certainly there's a number of things that I think from a municipal perspective we would find very welcome, such as reducing the legislative barriers to consolidation. I know we went through a number of different hoops, for example, to eliminate a paper fire protection district, the Fairview Fire Protection District here in our own efforts. And certainly that could have been made much easier in order to achieve what was, by all measures, a very good outcome. So there are a number of things there, and I know that everyone will certainly read through it in great detail and come away with it with ideas and where we can further some of the leading things we've done here in Downers Grove in terms of cooperation, collaboration, and consolidation. And so more of that to come as well. Lots of exciting things in 2016. We can't adjourn completely tonight. We need to go into executive session, so I'm going to ask for a motion to do that.
Mayor Tully, I move to convene into closed session pursuant to Section 2C1 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act to consider the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the village.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Fatimo?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Burnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. We are adjourned into closed session. Thank you for being here. Good night and Happy New Year to all. Best wishes for 2016.